thank you very much for joining us today as we explore a day in the life of a legal interpreter in Australia. The Polaron team would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians throughout Australia and their continued connection to land, sea, and the community. I'd like to start with the agenda. We will firstly introduce our panelists and hear from Nadi and Polaron's founder, before moving on to our panel discussion and finishing off with a Q&A. Just a reminder that this session is being recorded and will be available to watch on demand. There is a live chat box where you can send through any questions or comments for the Q&A at the end of this webinar. First off, I would like to introduce Lee Yakumis. Lee is the Strategic Engagement Manager at Nadi. Today, she'll briefly be telling us about Nadi's legal interpreting certification process. Welcome, Lee. All our panelists are connected to the legal interpreting industry in some form. Legal interpreting is a growing specialization field in Australia, and we thought it would be a wonderful opportunity to showcase the day in the life of a legal interpreter. I would now like to firstly introduce Serena Fan. She's an accomplished interpreter, translator, Nadi examiner, and is the founder of Serena Fan Language Services. Serena has been interpreting since 1990 and is one of the most versatile and recognized legal interpreters in the Vietnamese and English space. Welcome, Serena. Next up, I would like to introduce Yuqi Chen. Yuqi is our newest recruit to our language services team and has a background in the operations of legal interpreting. Wonderful to have you, Yuqi. We are also lucky enough to have Christine Lee with us today. Christine is a Nadi certified specialist legal interpreter and has over 10 years of experience in providing professional interpreting and translating services in legal settings for various courts and law firms throughout Australia. Christine's involvement within the translation profession in Australia does not stop there. She also engages with Nadi as a consult at their Technical Reference Advisory Committee. She's a trainee at RMIT and a subtitling translator and reviewer at SBS. Welcome, Christine. I would also like to give a warm introduction to Eva Hussein, the founder and director of Polaron. She's a practicing legal interpreter and a Nadi examiner. Eva has recently been working for the Australian Federal Police in a legal role. Now, Eva, can you tell me a bit more about the legal interpreting service we offer at Polaron and your role as a legal interpreter?
Will do, Angela, and can I say a big thank you for organising this session. So to those of you that are listening, you probably have no idea what it takes to get 165 registrations and lots of very accomplished people to come and join us. So thank you, Angela. And look, many people will know me because I've been around for a little bit in, wearing lots of different hats. It is, or it will be in November of this year, 23 years since Polaron was established. So we're very proud of our track record. And look, from the very beginning, when I started working as an interpreter and translator, I loved the legal space. I think it's probably because it's the only time that things cannot go on without you, and I mean in a public space. So I really enjoyed the respect and also the higher level register that I had to use, and also helping people with legal outcomes. So I don't do a lot of interpreting and translating anymore so much, but it is my first love, and I love working in the legal space. Moving on from that slide, if you don't mind, Angela, thank you. I will hand over to Lee, who's going to be talking about the specialist legal Nadi certification. I haven't gone through the process, but we luckily have somebody who has, and that'll be Christina, who's speaking in a moment. But we're hoping that Lee will demystify the whole process a little bit and take us through about how it's done and what's involved. Over to you, Lee.
Thank you, Eva. Thanks for the nice introduction, and welcome everybody. It's nice to be here. I have a lot to say in a very short time, so I'll speak a bit fast, but I don't want to take too much of your time because the main reason we're here is to hear everyone's experience. But we wanted to give you a quick overview of the role that Nadi plays in this area, and also some of the credentials that are available to you if you're thinking of working as a legal interpreter or if you're already working in this area. So what is Nadi? NAATI is the National Accreditation Authority for Translators and Interpreters. We're the national standards and certifying authority for translators and interpreters in Australia. And that means that we're upholding the standards that are expected of translators and interpreters in Australia through our certification system. So to give you a bit of context, over the last year, the last calendar year, we issued over 570 credentials, and that brings us up to around 9,900 practitioners who are holding around 13,500 credentials across over 100 languages. We can't test in every language that is spoken in Australia, but we do our best to test in as many as we can. I'll walk you through these credentials in a bit more detail, but to give you a bit of an understanding, at the certified provisional interpreter level, which is the entry level for testing in the interpreter stream, we have 65 languages available, 22 languages available at certified interpreter, and 7 languages available at the certified specialist legal interpreter credential. So we offer actually 6 different credentials for interpreters, and 3 of them or 4 of them are relevant to people who work in the legal field. If you think about legal interpreting as a whole, you can imagine that the situations and contexts you're working in would vary a lot. So you need different interpreting skills depending on the type of work that you're doing. Just to preface what I'm about to say, there's a lot of information on our website. We don't have time to go through it all now. So this is a very brief introduction, but I encourage you to take a look and read a bit more about all the detail involved. So overall, each credential that NAATI offers has a set of prerequisite requirements that you have to meet. This includes having formal training in translation or interpreting, such as a diploma of interpreting. We have a whole list of qualifications available on our website, which might help you. You also have to demonstrate your English proficiency and your ethical competency, which means that you can understand and apply the AUSIT or ASLIA Code of Ethics in your work, and also intercultural competency. So that means that you don't only know the languages, but you can also apply them in a culturally appropriate way. So if you're looking at the screen here on the left side, we've got the certified provisional interpreter credential, which is the entry level of interpreter testing that we offer. Is generalist, which means you don't need to be a specialist in, for example, the health or legal sectors to sit this test. And usually these people are involved in non-specialized community interpreting, which definitely involves a lot of the legal field. And on the right-hand side, we've got the certified interpreter credential, which is a higher level of interpreting. It's still generalist, so it's not specialized, but it is definitely more complex. And if you're sitting a test with us, we're not only testing your dialogue interpreting skills here, we're also looking at your sight translation, your simultaneous and consecutive monologue interpreting skills as well. And this is the one that Eva was mentioning before. We have a new credential under the certification system, the Certified Specialist Legal Interpreter credential. So this is recognizing the level of experience that a lot of these people have, and also the high level of skills and knowledge that they need to do their job well. So this is an advanced level credential. It is specialist. And for us, that means that these people are interpreting complex, highly specialized, and often expert to expert communication. And yeah, there's 2 components to this test, which looks at your interpreting skills, but also looks at your legal knowledge as a component. You'll need to hold certified interpreter before stepping up to this level. And the next slide, we have recognized practicing interpreter. So unfortunately, we aren't able to test in every language that is spoken in Australia. For any languages that we don't test in, which is generally languages where there's low demand, we offer a credential called recognized practicing interpreter. So in this case, instead of sitting a test with us, you'd be providing evidence of work practice. So you're showing that you already have experience interpreting in the community. Yeah, you'll still see people working in the legal field who have a recognized practicing credential because their language isn't tested or isn't available. And my last point is that anyone who holds a NAATI credential has to recertify every 3 years. So that doesn't mean sitting another test. but it does mean that you're showing that you're keeping up your skills, experience, maintaining your language, and you're keeping up your professional development. That's all for me. I went as quick as I could.
No, that was amazing. That was great. And thank you for summarizing it also succinctly. And as you said, there's information on the website. And, you know, if anyone is interested in pursuing any of these pathways or want to kind of upgrade to the next level, if you like, NAATI can help you. You know, I find that anytime I have a question, I get replies very quickly. It's a very good system that's pretty transparent. One thing I'll add is that for a lot of legal work, for those of you that maybe don't do it, is that sometimes you require security clearance. So not your police checks, but there's different levels of security clearance. And I remember when I applied, goodness, I had to tell them everything about everything. And it was pretty interesting and a little bit confronting. But for work, that's for law enforcement agencies like the Australian Federal Police or any of the state law enforcement agencies, you will need to have at least a baseline security clearance. And, you know, if you're thinking about getting into that space, it's really worth considering. So thank you, Lee, very much for summarizing all that very efficiently. And we encourage people to get in contact with NAATI if they want to explore this any further. So my experience, I've already told you that I love legal interpreting and translating, but a lot of people, I think, kind of shy away from it, and they're like, oh, that's too difficult. And of course, if you're working in courts, then your work will be recorded and sometimes analyzed. But I do believe that we do deliver essential service and we facilitate communication for people's legal outcomes. So you know, if you don't understand what's happening to you in a court system, then the legal outcomes can be quite poor. So our role is sometimes a little bit misunderstood. So I'm hoping to explore this a little bit. So we're not there obviously as advocates or, you know, we're not on anyone's side. So our job is to accurately and precisely interpret that everything's happening, but it can be a fairly stressful role. We work in courts, in tribunals, but also for law enforcement agencies, but also for lawyers and many other settings. So it's quite a, you know, big area of practice. And the other thing, and this is the last point on that slide, is sometimes we can't talk about what we do, right? I mean, we shouldn't be talking about what we do anyway, but I think for legal work, it's especially protected and kind of, you know, further, yeah, there's further privacy considerations and all kinds of things, such as security clearances. So I'm going to open the panel discussion up. So if I could get all of our wonderful panelists on screens and with microphones on, I'll ask the first question. And I might actually start with Serena because I've known her for the longest time, and she's done a lot of work in this space for ages, for something like 30 years. We won't even admit. But how do you call yourself a legal interpreter nowadays, and how did you become one? What happened?
Oh, thank you, Eva. Yes, look, I don't call myself a legal interpreter nowadays, although I still do a fair bit of legal interpreting and translation. But I became a legal interpreter, I think, because of my interest in, I don't know, detective books when I was young.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, I used to read all these, you know, detective stories and crimes and things like that, and just got fascinated with all of this, you know, investigation, going to court and what have you. So, yeah, I just developed a preference to court work. And, you know, for many years, a typical day for me would be, you know, a court trial. And it could start with a, you know, pre-trial conference in a barrister's chambers, you know, getting the defendant ready for the trial, make sure he's in the right suit or, you know, got his tie or something like that to look presentable. And, you know, so, and then we go on to trial. But, you know, trials, one of the things about court interpreting is it is so unpredictable. sometimes they book you for a 7 days trial. It could turn into a 3 months trial, or it could resolve on the first day you turn up at court. You know, you clear all your book for 7 days or 2 weeks or whatever, and then the matter got resolved in a day. So, you know, you only get cancellation fee for the next day. But that's, you know, part of, I guess, you know, your management skill to you know, take on other work when you know that your calendar are clear. So you ring up the agency and say, hey, listen, you know, I thought I was going to be busy for 2 weeks, but it's all resolved now.
Yeah.
And then you can have a trial that will last for 7 months. Okay, so I was involved in a murder court trial at the Supreme Court that continued for 7 months.
Day in, day out, right?
Yes, so every day, and it was where I pushed for a separate booth or, you know, interpreting area for me, you know, where they provided simultaneous equipment so that I'm not actually sitting in the dock with 6 other accused persons.
Yeah, wow.
You know, so go figure. But, you know, it was a lot of hard work just to get that organized. But yeah, look, I love legal interpreting. And for many years, I focused on criminal legal interpreting. So working with law enforcement agencies and then with the courts. But nowadays, I'm sort of shifting to commercial law.
Okay.
So yeah, we're getting
It's
more
kind of connected a little bit. Yeah.
Yes, yes. It's a different area, you know, less interesting. But I guess you know, these are people, business people, and you are right, Eva. You know, it's in the legal space that people feel they need you, and they recognize your experience and your skills, and sometimes your I
value.
guess you're very much valued, and it's where you can demand your fee.
Mm-hmm.
You're in
so
more control.
It can be well paid. Yeah. So very interesting, because I started, you know, in 2000, and I remember looking up to Serena at that time, because she was already working in this space, and I've learned so much just from being mentored by Serena. And I think, you know, it's very pleasing to hear that so many things have changed, but some things haven't. So Serena just said that she doesn't really consider herself a legal interpreter, but here's someone that does. So I just wanted to introduce Christine, who has recently undergone the process of certification as a specialized legal interpreter. But that's a massive commitment. She's also doing her PhD, and she works full-time on subtitles. Amazing stuff. So I'm really pleased that we were able to entice her to come and join us today. So what I was going to ask you, Christine, is what motivated you to go through the process of certification, and how was it for you?
Thank you, Eva. I think, as Serena mentioned, first of all, you do have to have a bit of passion on what you are doing. And that's what I'm doing in the past 10 or 12 years. I have worked as a legal interpreter, and for a couple of years since I graduated from translation and interpreting program at UQ, I have learned that proficiency in both the source and target languages is only the most basic requirement to be a competent interpreter and translator in the legal field.
There's so much more.
Yeah, familiarity with the language's nuances and being really well conversant in both the Australian and international legal system can be more prominent in this discursive practice. And our mission as legal interpreter and translators is to help these foreign language speakers communicate in a judicial environment. So this is my passion and what keeps me doing in the past 10 or 12 years. But having said that, it might not be a suitable job for everyone, and it is not anyone who can walk into with their interpretation certifications only, but it is absolutely must, I can tell you. Yeah. So to walk in this niche market, a particular set of skills I found are very important. And first of all, you need to be fluent in 3 languages at least: English, whatever other languages you speak, and also the language of legal terminology and protocols.
So legalese, it's called legalese, yes. Christine, right?
And public speaking skills, I found it's very important as well,
essential.
because some at court, particularly in the court environment, in a court environment, some testimony can be shocking or graphic.
Yes,
And a
traumatic
court
even.
interpreter cannot be daunted by conveying this information. And also, you need to also be acting quickly and know how to handle any linguistic or ethical issues that will undoubtedly arise. So I guess to the new graduates or people who really want to try this field, you know, first of all, you need to be fully prepared, not only your knowledge skill, but also psychologically, because you, as Serena also mentioned, that to interpret it in the criminal justice system, it's so unpredictable, and you will never know who your next client is and what sort of case you will provide services for. Thank you.
Totally. And did you find the process of undergoing the certification, the specialist certification, particularly onerous, or was it just, you know, were you able to consolidate your skills in a way that, because there's just a handful of you actually in Australia, and we knew that we wanted to do this webinar, we looked everywhere, and there's just a few people really. So I'm just wondering whether, for the benefit of the audience today, you could tell us whether you had to study like crazy, or did you come with the knowledge and just pass with flying colors?
Definitely, I have to prepare for the knowledge part, because even though I have many experience of interpreting in court and also for law firms, you will never assume that you have mastered all the, you know, legal knowledges or terminologies, but also like ethical issues as well, cultural issues, law and culture issues as well. So you do have to prepare, fully prepare yourself for this kind of test, because this test is the test. So I think that first of all, for the first part, so for the knowledge part test, I did like at least 4 to 5 months preparation, and I sort of like forced myself every night to, for example, to read all through these legal terminologies, and to not only to learn them by you know, by the literal meaning of them, but also how they apply in a specific legal case. I think that's very important. And also, as I mentioned, you also need to be familiar with both the Australian and also international legal system, because that's what they are going to test you as well.
Right. Very interesting. So I'm going to now ask my colleague Yu Chi a question, because she has actually studied or finished a Master's of Interpreting and Translating. And nowadays she coordinates translators and interpreters that do legal work. What does your day typically look like, apart from the fact that it's very fast paced and things change every 5 minutes? Do you start with coffee or tea? That's my first question to you.
Okay, I'm not actually a professional interpreter right now, because I haven't sit in the NATI test so far. I just graduated. But I can like share something with you guys. How I work as a project coordinator in this field. Yes, I will start with like receiving and replying multiple emails, because this especially legal interpreting and the legal translation, it requires a lot of like accuracy and responsibilities. So people took very a careful way of regarding this kind of assignments. So we need to make sure every step is on track, and everything is like make sure. So I think except for like a fast pace, something like that, I also find it with much like responsibilities and also risks, because I often heard like interpreters saying that they're like afraid of taking some tasks because it might be risky for them, because they need to sit into a court or something like that. It might cause them trouble if they're not competent enough.
We sometimes hear, particularly from interpreters and translators from smaller communities, they might worry about what impact it'll have on their private lives. But Yu Chi, you didn't answer a very important question. Tea or coffee before anything starts in your day? Is it tea or coffee?
I prefer coffee.
Coffee. Okay,
Okay.
we'll bear that in mind. So lots of what you do is just coordination of other people's, you kind of this meat in the sandwich. So you'll be liaising with the clients, looking
Yeah.
at their requirements, seeing how flexible can be. Because if you think about it, to find or to contract appropriate interpreter requires matching those requirements to the skills and to availability and all kinds of things. And I think Serena's already mentioned that you may plan for something and then it gets cancelled or extended, or so it's like a
Yes.
constant pace of multitasking and keeping an eye on things, right?
Yep.
Cool, thanks Yuchi. So Serena, if you cast your mind back to the days when you were doing a lot of legal interpreting, what would your typical day look like?
Oh, yeah. I think I quickly mentioned before, but probably, try to get to the city before the traffic starts.
Yes.
Sometimes.
Looking for parking.
Yes, looking for parking and actually planning it the night before, so working out, is it, Victoria Market Day or not? Can I park there, so just little things like that, to making sure that your attire is appropriate for the court hearing, because like I told you, the only time an accused person will dress probably is, during their trial. So they'll be wearing a suit. So you don't want to look, be mistaken as the accused person. So, but I guess
how you present yourself.
How you present yourself. But also, clothes that will be comfortable, because you're going to be either sitting next to the accused person or standing, to interpret for a witness. And you are basically going to be in the view of the court and, the jury, the judge and the jury and everybody. And one time I actually, got tired. I said, look, I'm going to sit down. And one of the jury members said to me, oh, but we can't see her, can she stand? And I'm like saying, well, hang on, you only need to hear me. You don't need to see me. You need to look at the witness person, not me. But, so little things like that, you got to manage the situation. And so, trial, and then depending on how the day goes, you usually, if it's a continuous trial, by the end of the day, either 4 o'clock, 4:15 or 4:30, you are pretty buggered. I can tell you that. So, you wouldn't be able to do any more work after that. But, I was young once, and you're
still young. Come on, my friend.
I admit I'm no longer young, no longer energetic like I used to, but I would do a police interview at night, and sometimes it continued. I get called at 3 or 4 a.m. in the morning, and you go there and you interpret, and then there's not enough time. You get home, you have another coffee, and you get dressed, and you go straight to court. And I used to be able to do that. I can't do that anymore. So basically, that is, day in, day out for me, just court trial. But I tell you, one of the most interesting things I've ever done in the legal area is probably interpreting for a spy, a police informant, very secretive.
Tell us more.
And we would meet, I would go with the what they call the handler, the informant's handler. And so basically from a law enforcement agency, that is. And he and I, we would find, or he would book a motel room where, they would meet up with the person. And so, very secretly, going to a motel room. And I often have to tell my husband, bless him, and I, say to him, listen, I'm working, today with somebody at some
in a motel.
In a motel.
Oh, that's hilarious.
but I can't tell him anything else. Okay.
Right.
But those sort of sensitive issues, and I think one of the things why, I think I guess I get requests from people is the ability to be very discreet, when you are interpreting in the legal space.
Mhm.
I mean, it goes, I don't know, just beyond the normal confidentiality.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's hyper sensitive, and you just got to be very careful how you manage the situation, even from your notes to, when you talk to the person on the phone or, through text or whatever. I mean, sometimes you've got to delete it. And sometimes whatever work you do for them, they want you to quickly delete it after you've done the work, delete it off your computer, delete it off your phone. And, so, it's interesting, but it's
lots of challenges.
Yeah.
Sure. So you painted a picture of something both exciting, but also, I guess, sort of nerve-wracking and unpredictable. I think that is true for any interpreter that works in any space, but I think for legal work, where there may be, in fact, lots of confidentiality provisions that are over and above of what a typical interpreter could do.
Can I quickly mention, one
sure.
more thing before I forget? And, the important thing about being a good legal interpreter is to be able to defend your work. You must be able to defend your work.
It needs to stand.
And understand the process of your work, because you can get challenged by a barrister. And it could be, you're interpreting, and then somebody in it could be a Vietnamese speaking lawyer who said, "Oh, hang on, that was
wrong.
Mistranslated." And then, they ask the jury to go out, and then you become the witness, it depends, if it's not so serious, then, the judge might just ask you there and there, and, that it may be, resolved quite easily. But if it is so important, they might get you to go into the witness box, and they will cross-examine you. They will ask you questions. How did you derive to this word?
Yes.
Why did you choose this word and not this word?
And
sometimes that is the unpredictability of interpreting, and you must be able to defend your work. And we are human. If you make a mistake, just say so. It's fine. You can make mistakes.
You need to own up. But it's true that sometimes it's blamed the interpreter. I've seen it all as well. And I think anytime we interpret, particularly in a public domain, this is, when I was working very actively in this space, I always remembered that I represent not just myself, but the company that I was working for, but also my colleagues. And, every now and then I would jump into, find other interpreters in the courts. And I've seen people that did me proud, by the way they handled, the assignment and the way they looked and all of that. Christine, I won't ask you what your day looks like, because at the moment you work on subtitles, but I did want to ask you, how do you think the legal interpreting differs, or what's the difference between traditional interpreting, if you like? They're both challenging, and as Serena already said, a lot of what we do is looking for parking and preparing, and I did notice a few questions about briefing and stuff like that, so I'll try and cover that shortly. But what are the major differences between, standard interpreting or community interpreting and legal interpreting?
I think I totally agree with Serena, as she mentioned that basically, first of all, I want to point it out is there's no typical day of practicing as a legal interpreter within the criminal justice system because of all sort of like unpredictabilities. I think legal interpreting is probably one of these few professions which requires someone to be completely flexible. I can't remember how often I have been called late at night to come down to interpret for someone in custody or assist with a witness statement. I mean, from a more professional perspective, we need to be prepared to deal with all sorts of ethical issues in our daily practice. And I mean, there are a lot of times that when people treat you as a consultant, I mean, ask you to listen to their personal tragedies and provide legal opinions. Other times they may ask for cigarettes and to make an urgent call from your mobiles. I mean, you do need to be prepared from these situations and clearly understand what is ethical and what is not under what sort of circumstances. I think that's the most intricate part of the profession, apart from your professional knowledge and also apart from more traditional way of interpreting.
Yeah, and I get I guess the other thing, Christine, is that we are perhaps exposed in some situations to a little bit more risk. Like I've had, and when I talk about risk, it's not that the interpreting is in any way, shape or form dangerous, but like as an example, I once had somebody who lost, it was a work cover case. All the lawyers and the judges and everybody went home, and I was faced by this person who said, who threatened to commit suicide. So what do you do in a situation like that? So I'm just agreeing with you very much that it is everything that happens around the interpreting that's different, right? Because the interpreting itself, we know terminology, we know how to translate words and expressions and sentences, and we know how to bridge the communication gap. But sometimes what happens around all of that is different. I once remember interpreting for somebody that was trying to get their license back, their driver's license back, and she didn't know how many, what's a standard drink or whatever. And she didn't pass, she didn't get her license back. And afterwards her husband said to me, couldn't you tell her, you know the answer, like why didn't you tell her? And I'm like, okay, actually that's not my job. But that happens all the time, because in legal situations people are, and that's not to say that in health environments it's less important or whatever, but in legal situations people are often very stressed and under duress, and they don't understand the system. So sometimes it's not even the language, right? And I also think that one of the most difficult spaces is family court, because there's so much that's going on. Over to you, Christine.
Yeah, here, Eva, I really want to share one of my personal stories, just like as a, fresh graduate, as a new interpreter who just entered this field, because I just want to share this to encourage those people who might think, oh, I don't think I can do a legal interpreting. I don't think I can interpret in a court, because we all, went through this step-by-step process. I still vividly remember the first legal case I did for an agency at a local court more than 10 years ago. So according to the agency's brief, it was only a preliminary hearing, and I was booked to interpret for the wife of a DV case. Okay. However, it was not until I appeared in court that I realized it was a formal trial, and I was forced to not only witness a lot of nude photos relating to the claimed sexual abuse, but also have to sort of indulge myself into the situation to interpret the details of serious crime and violence. Wow. I still remember this case because I ended up vomiting all the way back home, because psychologically I was not fully prepared.
Physically sick, yeah. Wow.
Yeah, so I think why I share this case is because do not think just because of one case or just because of one assignment or just because of some miscommunication you had with your agency or the court that you think you are not suitable to do this, and because I'm not fully prepared, because I'm short of skill or something like that. Yeah, just be courageous, and also as a legal interpreter, you need to act quickly and be absolutely flexible. Yeah.
And very agile. So thank you so much for sharing that. And I think those of us that have worked as interpreters, we all have, one day everyone, we're going to write that book, right? But we've got about 5 minutes left, and also, I wanted to answer some of the questions that were posted. But before I do that, I wanted to ask you, Chi, about the importance of briefing of interpreters. And I did want to say to you that when clients contact a language services provider, often all they tell you is that I need a Chinese interpreter. Go figure, right?
Yeah.
And then you have to pull out, it's like pulling teeth out of people, and they don't seem to understand why it's so incredibly important to brief interpreters. So your role is to pull that information out of clients, is that right?
Yes, mostly the client don't know what type of person they're looking for or what type of services they're looking for. So firstly, we as project coordinator or agency will contact the client to let them make sure and to clarify what type of like services and other details such as the language, because sometimes the language has some like dialects. It's important to like to tell which dialect is needed. So the language and type of services, is it for telephone interpreting or is on-site interpreting? And location, is it on-site or off-site? And some general content, because some assignment is not allowed to like share the
That's right.
content.
Yeah. So we might not be able to even say or tell the interpreter what the assignment's about, or there's lots of things like that in what we do. Yeah,
we cannot like share detailed information, but luckily we can tell them like general information or type of a crime, if it's a code interpreting, what type of crime or is included or might be
type
included.
of setting, how long,
Yes,
we might not be able to share names or other details. So
and most importantly, if it's for AFP, we will like make clear what type of security clearance is they needing. So that's important, and it's important for interpreters to get that if you're trying to be a legal interpreter.
Yeah, thank you, Ichi. So I could see so many very, very interesting questions and comments there. So I just wanted to acknowledge that we are seeing them, and we might have to meet again, everyone, to talk about legal interpreting. But because we've only got 3 minutes left, and it's been such a robust and interesting discussion. So thank you, Serena, Christine, and Ichi and Lee for sharing all that information with us. Angela, we've got time for maybe 1 or 2 questions. Over to you.
Yeah. So we'll go to the first one, which was submitted by Jerry. Thank you, Jerry. And this one's directed to Lee. We'll get Lee to answer it. Can one sit in for a CSLI directly from CPI?
Oh, good question. No, actually, you have to hold certified interpreter first.
Okay, wonderful. This one will go to Christine. It was submitted by Ozit. How important were your studies in interpreting, masters or above, in empowering your practice and work in court?
I mean, to be honest, when working as a real life interpreter, it really gives me a whole new perspective on what I have learned and been taught at school. We do have a lot of practice when we are doing our master's or diploma's programs. But a lot of times, as I mentioned, in real life, different cases have different unpredictabilities, and there will be lots of ethical issues in real life scenario, real life situations that you have to deal with. I mean, time is the best, trainer, I think. To be honest, when you do legal interpreting every day, and you learned one case by another one, so you gain your experience, and you talk and share your professional experience or professional knowledge with your colleagues, and also attend professional workshops and seminars. They are all very helpful and very important in your professional career. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Christine. And we'll just go to the last question for Yuchi. This is sort of addressed a little bit during your talk, but what information can you tell the interpreters about the assignment? Can you just elaborate a little bit more?
Okay, like language, type of services, location, general content or topic, like security clearance level requirement, and yeah, probably. And if you want like more detailed information, we can talk to the client for more information if you want. Yeah.
That's a very good point, because I think the other thing I would encourage practitioners to do is to ask questions. So it's less of a transactional exchange. And I think I did see a couple of very important points in the chat where people said, you know, interpreters should get paid for briefing and all of that. So a lot of what we do is educating and kind of conditioning clients for certain behaviors, but also interpreters also need to be informed and empowered to you know, to ask questions. And when they arrive at the appointment, the better prepared, the better experience for everybody, essentially. So if you are not sure about something, ask Yuchi at Polaron and other people that you might be working with. I would also like to say that it's really good to discuss these things. And lastly, we had a couple of really good suggestions for future sessions. So we had mental health, we had AI, and a few other bits and pieces. And I know that Ozid in February, I think on the 18th, is running a face-to-face session on legal interpreting, I believe. So go to the website and take a look. But in the meantime, I wanted to say a really big thank you for Serena for telling us what it's been like working as a legal interpreter, to Christine for telling us what it was like becoming, specialized legal interpreter. Yuchi sharing some of her everyday experiences at Polaron, and we know it's coffee, not tea, good. And Lee for giving us just a quick outlook on how to maybe aim for the higher certification. So I think we'll meet again in a couple of weeks, hopefully, but any of the questions that we weren't able to answer because of lack of time, we'll try and address in some other way. But by all means, please keep in touch. And, you know, if you ever work at Polaron, make sure you ask as many questions as you need to get your assignment just perfect. Even if it's parking, we might be able to help with that as well.
Wonderful. Thank you, Eva. I am just going to now pass it over to Carla, who's just going to say a few words and we'll wrap up.
Yeah, thank you, Angela, and thank you everyone that is here, that registered to the webinar. I just want to let you know that this webinars has been a really successful series, and I see a lot of you like it, love it. So keep in touch with us, check our social medias. We're going to keep up on this type of webinars, and if you have any feedbacks, any recommendations for other topics to touch, just let us know. You have my email there, Eva's as well, and Lee. So if you have any questions or would like to explore more the legal interpreting space and world, just let us know. Happy to help. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much all. Have a good rest of the day.
Thank you for having us.